It has become astonishingly clear to me because of the Lord that you cannot separate money from spirituality. You cannot separate spirituality from physicality. You cannot separate physicality from your family life. And we are in a world in America where almost all of us, because of what banking does, is to make us believe we compartmentalize everything and that's normal. We separate it. It's like we're only going to work on this muscle over here and that muscle over there, but we're not ever going to bring them together to create a greater good. If we don't understand banking, we'll always be the product of banking. But once we know what's going on, we will know what to do.
Nelson Nash said everybody should be in two businesses, the one they make their living in and banking. And banking is often more important than the one that they make their living in. Nelson didn't mention a product or anything like that. He mentioned a process. And it just so happens that whole life insurance is the best vehicle for that process. But at the fundamental level of everything, we're just saying start understanding how money works.
Telling people you're going to do the thing is not doing the thing. Writing about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Posting on social media about doing the thing is not doing the thing. But when we get crystal clear on why we need to do the thing, then we're brought to the precipice or the chasm of the real hurdle, which is human behavior. And if we don't believe that banks and marketing don't know that about human behavior, we are fooling ourselves when it comes to understanding what's going on with banking.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. This is Nate, Brock, and I's first recording of 2025. I think we're pretty close to right on time right now, so this should come out pretty quick. We're going to try to get ahead. That's one of our New Year's goals, if you will. Brock and Nate and I got to visit for about 10-15 minutes before we even hit record, which is a huge blessing to be reminded that I'm grateful that I have men in my life that I can just be genuine with and be held accountable by. And man, this may make you uncomfortable, but be loved by, which is a real blessing in the grand scheme. So Nate and Brock, I know we're going to talk about banking and money and all that stuff like we always do, but I asked you guys a question and I kind of helped you think through it ahead of time. But I said, if there was one word that you would choose to say defines your 2025 or what you're excited about, what would it be? Now, I didn't tell Nate I was going to do this, and I didn't know what word he was going to use. So, this is him getting a little vulnerable for everybody to hear. But we all had a word. I'll share mine first, and then we'll go to Nate. Mine was obedient, because I'm really becoming aware of the Lord is working all the time, and it's whether we're being obedient or not to look for it and where he wants us to join and how, because all good things are going to happen for his kingdom. Nate, what about you?
Man, I was really hoping you weren't going to ask me anything personal to start this, because I was on the verge earlier, and yeah. Anyways,
This hit record. We're still talking.
yeah, I know. So yeah, it's broken. Just to be real honest and transparent, it's broken. I shared with y'all that I had a friend who passed away from cancer recently, and it felt like something kind of broke loose inside of me at that funeral that I've been holding on to since my dad passed away in 2012. And I just feel like there's been some hardness that just kind of got, I don't know, melted, broken up, whatever you want to call it. But I'm much more keenly aware of the privileges that we have to do the things that we do, the privilege that we have just to breathe. And when we recognize those privileges, if we really are able to take a step back and realize how small we are and how good God is, the more that we can shine a light on his goodness, the less we're going to be concerned about ourselves and the things that we want. And also, in my opinion, the less Well, it's all connected, because put it this way, the more we shine a light on God's goodness, the less selfish we become.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, Nate. Brock, you get to follow that up. That's why I went first.
That's funny. Well, mine was a lot lighter than y'all's. Mine was relaxing. I have a really hard time with stopping and just pausing for a moment, and that was something that I worked on this year with a lot of my coaches in my life and people in my life of like, hey, like you have to learn how to step away. And it's funny because like in all my personality tests, strength, all those things, one of the things that is resounding in everything is that I have a very unique sense of focus and uh, where I can, if I get focused on one thing, I will sit on that one thing and I can sit there for hours on end and not realize what's going on other than I'm only doing this one thing until it's done. And being able to remove myself from that and recognize, hey, like you're sitting here for too long, you got to get out. Um, Transcends in a lot of other places. And so for the last 2 weeks, I haven't done hardly anything. This might be the second time or third time in the last 2 weeks that I have opened up my laptop, or this is the second time that I have sat at this desk um, in the last 2 weeks, which is profound.
Good for you, man. Good for
Yeah.
you. As being the buddy of both of you guys, it's really cool to observe uncomfortable growth in your friends, because I was always impressed by Brock's ability to focus, but we can always have a strength that can turn into a weakness if it doesn't glorify the Lord. And I've always been impressed with how calm and seemingly unbothered Nate is by anything, which actually frustrates the mess out of me sometimes. But to hear that he's broken in a way that allows him to glorify the Lord, and to know what all Nate and I have talked about as far as our 2025 vision, if the Lord sees fit, it's really cool to just see that he's always working and everything is a blessing. So, people always, when I get to visit with people, we've been doing this for over a year, which is wild. Okay. Wild. Did you know that, typically speaking, y'all fact check me on this, but the last time I looked, to be in the top 10% of any podcasting arena, if you've recorded 100 episodes, you enter into the top 10%. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly the same number now, but it was on another podcast that we did over 100 episodes on years ago. So if we just sit there for a second, just sit there. If you can do one pull up and you're over 40 years old, you're in the top 5%. 1 to 5. Dead serious in America. Don't believe me? Ask the guys you hang out with that are 40 to 45, and that'll give you a clear indicator of if you're hanging in and out with the top 10% or not. Physically. Okay. So here's where I'm going with this. It has become astonishingly clear to me, because of the Lord and his grace on letting me learn new things and trying to be a good steward of it, that you cannot separate money from spirituality. You cannot separate spirituality from physicality. You cannot separate physicality from your family life. You cannot separate your family life from what wealth and freedom means. And we are in a world in America where almost all of us, because of what banking does, y'all are wondering where the segue was here, is to make us believe we compartmentalize everything and that's normal. We separate it. It's like we're only going to work on this muscle over here and that muscle over there, but we're not ever going to bring them together to create a greater good. And I think this is what Nelson meant when he said, if we don't understand banking, we'll always be the product of banking, or something like that, paraphrased. But once we know what's going on, we will know what to do. So if I told Brock and Nate, now Brock's a young whippersnapper compared to me and Nate. If I said, hey, Brock, if you can do 5 pull-ups by the time you're our age, you'll be in the top 5%. Is that complicated?
No,
So what would stop you from doing that?
not doing it, being lazy, being unintentional, being not deliberate, not paying attention.
Yep.
Jim Rohn said the danger of the things that are easy is the things that are easy to do are also the things that are easy not to do.
I heard a guy say, I can't remember his name, but I can see his face and I like his clips. He's reading a little poem about the thing. Telling people you're going to do the thing is not doing the thing. Writing about doing the thing is not doing the thing. posting on social media about doing the thing is not doing the thing. And he goes through like 20 things that aren't doing the thing. But when we get crystal clear on why we need to do the thing, then we're brought to the precipice or the chasm of the real hurdle, which is human behavior. And if we don't believe that banks and marketing and the big three or big four don't know that about human behavior, we are fooling ourselves when it comes to understanding what's going on with banking.
Absolutely. Every major institution that's out there, every major corporation that's out there that has the goal of sales has psychologists on standby coming up with their processes.
Yep. So this morning, I got invited for the first time to a men's Bible study at 5 a.m. Yes, I'm working off of 4 hours of sleep, so I'm going to probably have to take a nap after this. And the guy I'm sitting next to says, "Hey, I've seen you in the gym a bunch. I think I know who you are, but what do you do?" Y'all know how this works all the time. And you're always like, Brock and Nate, we talk about this all the time. We're like, I've gotten to where I'm like, Lord, if you want me to tell people what I do, let them ask me. Like, just keep me out of the way, because I used to just word vomit on people and scare them to death. And so there's like 10 guys there. I'm the new guy. Everybody else has been coming for a year or two. Y'all know this feeling. And the Lord's like, let me just show you how I work, Brandon. In an hour, they all have asked me what I do, because they know I'm at all my kids' stuff because they've seen me there. They see me at the gym whenever I want to go to the gym semi. And guys, I haven't figured it all out. I'm still trying to build systems. I want to be clear on that. But they just recognize something different. So I'm talking to this guy beside me, and he says, "Man, I need to get with you because I have an idea of what you do. My wife and I are going to the bank to try to get financing to build a house." And he said, here's where we've struggled. Now, he's not listened to the podcast. He's not gone to our website. He's not read Becoming Your Own Banker. These are all just common daily things that people talk about with banking. He goes, we're trying to build this shop, and now the banking system's saying that it's a barn dominium, and they're making it harder for financing and the rates and all these things that we know about banking. And I'm just listening. And he goes, and every time I go to save up cash, I feel guilty. I said, so why do you feel guilty? And this proves that you can't separate these things. He said, well, I've never been asked that. I said, well, what do you think? He goes, I think it's because I'm becoming selfish when I'm saving up cash. And I'm like, okay, so let me reverse engineer it for you. I said, what would you be doing if you had more time freedom? Because I already knew he traded time for money with a 40-hour-a-week job. He goes, I'd be doing more of this. And then he just sat there and he goes, oh, I've never thought about it that way. And I said, let me tell you, neither had I. This is where the humility comes in, guys, because I want to start poking my chest out. And then I remember what Brock's dad, Trent, has taught us. It ain't about us. It's about being good stewards of the information and meeting people where they are. And I can just feel me poking that chest out like a peacock if I don't watch it. But the information that we have, guys, is just the Lord's blessed us to know it. And how are we going to glorify him and how we share it, which is questions over statements. Nate, I didn't really ask you a question, but isn't that fascinating? Because most people don't, and this is not a knock, this is by design, don't really go 2-3 levels deep on why is the banking process like this.
Well, it goes back to something we talk about often, which is most people don't think about why they think. Most people don't think about how they think. And for this guy, as an example, he knew he thought this way, but he didn't even know why he thought this way. And I would venture to guess there's probably a lot of people that are out there that are feeling very similar. It's like when I'm saving up, sometimes saving up cash can almost feel like hoarding, being selfish or whatever, instead of an outward focus on, how can I be a blessing to the people around me, or, how can God use what I've created here, whatever. And this whole idea of the foundation of everything that we talk about centered around this idea that our dollar can do more than one job. The reason why that's important is because that enables us to unlock a new level of stewardship that we never thought was possible.
You're getting me fired up. Are we having a podcast or a sermon? Let's go. Okay. All right.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
I thought we were just talking.
No, we're just talking. We're just talking. So, Brock, I would say that the majority of people that probably listen to us fall into one of three categories typically, and that's inside or outside of listening to this podcast or watching YouTube. They have no control of cash flow monthly, so they're literally living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. They have a little bit and they focus on a credit score, or they've created some wealth, but they know there's something else that can be done. They just don't know what it is yet. And then on a rare occasion, there's that fourth category of I'm aware of the rules of the game. Now, how can I play in a way that allows me to be the best steward ever?
Yeah,
Would you agree with that?
I would agree. And then there's some of our friends that listen to this. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I would agree with those categories for sure.
And on that note, if we're going by pure math, back to the pull-ups and back to the realities of if we record 100 podcasts, we move into the top 10% of all podcast recorders ever. If that's even if it's 20%, I don't care. I know it's somewhere in there. What stops us from leaning into being in the top 10 to 20%? Most people say it's, oh, you were given something or this or that, which I heard a book quoted by, oh, what's his name? Babak Ramashami. Is that how you say his last name? You know what I'm talking about?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He basically said America has become a country of victims. And the point he was making is when you go to third world countries, you hardly ever find a victim. And so I was reminded by one of the pastors this morning. He said, I'm in Africa with our pastor, and I'm looking at this 8-year-old put this big old jug of water on the top of his head and walking with it at 8 years old like it's nothing. He goes, I don't even know if I could have done that as a grown man. And if we stop there in any walk of our life, that's easy. But if we go, and I said to him, he's like, oh, I don't know if I want this guy to come back to this group. I said, well, why couldn't you? He was like, Brock, you'd be proud. He's like, because I haven't prioritized the things that allow me to do things with my mind and my body, which is guilt. We're all guilty of that. And so this is the same truth that's used psychologically on us, specifically by banks, but also often by Wall Street, the IRS, and large financial institutions. What are y'all thinking?
I'm thinking two things need to be made very clear. Number one, we're not saying that banks are the worst things in the entire world and you shouldn't use banks at all. You absolutely need banks, right? I think there's a lot of people that in our communities that say, hey, I use banks to pay bills, but not to store my money. But we're also saying that, or we are not also saying that life insurance companies are the greatest thing to ever walk the face of this earth. Like they have an agenda too. They are part of the financial institutions. But what we are saying is you need to know the rules of the game and how they're played so that you can play by the rules that they are playing by and not what they are teaching you to play by. And when you look at your financial life and you can confidently say that number one, I have a cash flow system that gives me timely data that's automated and my income and expenses are separated. I have a game board where I can see all of my financial life on one page and all the decisions I can make. And I know the rules of the game. That puts you in a much, much stronger position to have conversations like this. And when somebody comes and asks you, why are you doing something? Or you look at your own life and say, why am I doing this? You can test and verify the decisions that you're going to make into the future of what you want to do instead.
So Nelson Nash said everybody should be in two businesses, the one they make their living in and banking. And banking is often more important than the one that they make their living in. Nelson didn't mention a product or anything like that. He mentioned a process. And it just so happens that whole life insurance is the best vehicle for that process, the most efficient vehicle for that process. But at the fundamental level of everything, we're just saying start understanding how money works. Bottom line, understand how money works. Understand how you can properly apply the principle of leverage in your life. Understand how you can create momentum behind the dollars that are flowing through your life. Understand how you can get more than one use out of the dollars that are flowing through your life. unless something drastically changes, we're always going to have the need for a bank account. But I'm paraphrasing here. Instead of you being the product for the bank, let the bank be the product for you.
That's good. I have a group of local friends, and every year we get together and we play a game of poker because we've all loved Hold'em for a long time. And so it was pretty funny because we're all getting into our 40s. And so instead of the party starting at 8, it started at 2, so we could be home at 8. Instead of there being no food, there was a charcuterie board that looked like it came out of a magazine. Instead of girls drinking, some cheap wine, there was wine from Napa. And then there was puzzles being done by the ladies while we were playing poker. And I'm like, man, if this is not an indicator that life changes. And we split the pot at 8:20 because we were all ready to go home and go to bed with the final 4 people. Okay. Now, the thing that about that is this: as we're sitting there, one of the buddies on that got beat out, he's the life of the party always. There is a place he's always played cards. They call it the deer camp. Yes, we live out in the middle of the country, so this is normal out here. And he's been going there since he could barely talk and walk. And he starts naming all of these different gambling games they play. Now, let me just say this. If you were listening at all, you would be an idiot to go down to that deer camp to play poker until you had a printed out list of every game they play and the rules. Because the rules might as well said, you're going to give us your money if you're new. You're going to give us your money if you don't know all the rules of the game. You're going to give us your money even if you just show up and you put any money in this game, you are going to lose because you are unaware of what all is going on. Because 99% of the people who are there have been going there for 20, 30, 40 years. That is no different than what we are doing daily when our dollar goes into any system that's been created since the founding of America and banks and financial institutions and IRS and the Wall Street and all that. So I love that you always bring that up, Brock. We are not saying that you can eliminate banks, but once you know the rules of the game, it is much easier to be confident in why you're doing what you're doing and how and when. And that's a much different feeling than going, oh, I can't do this, or I'm always going back to zero, or the cash, I save up and then it's gone because life happens. And really leaning into, well, why is that? And how long has that been repeating in your life? But most of us, this was me too, for a long, long time, stay in the realm of what we know because it's comfortable. We may peek around the corner at what we don't know, what we know we don't know, but we never ever want to go to what we don't know because you have to go further around the corner to figure out what you know you don't know. It's a mouthful, but y'all get the gist.
Yeah,
Okay?
you got to ask why a few times in order to get around the corner.
Thank you, Nate. That was much better said.
I'm gonna take us off script for. We don't have a script, but
We don't have a script.
I'm gonna take you off the path for just a second.
Do it.
So, Brandon, we talk a lot about you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable in the fact of, like, if there's something that you don't know, instead of turning your head to it, you're gonna go seek it out and try to figure this out. So, Brandon, we'll start with you. It's something in your life about something that you don't know anything about, where you could just turn your head. What are you trying to lean into?
So I text last year, man, you couldn't have scripted that any better. Last year, I started taking guitar lessons from an awesome lady named Melinda Boyd, who is in our town, who can play everything. She's got, what do they call that? Pitch perfect, Nate? Perfect pitch. I can never remember which way. She's been doing voice lessons with my daughter. And so I texted her this morning and I said, God-fearing woman who is amazing. So I'm going to read something she shared back. I said, hey, in the vein of getting uncomfortable again, you're at the top of my list when I thought about what can I do to get uncomfortable. And she said, all right, what are you thinking? And I said, well, I have a foundation for the guitar. I'm going to keep practicing and playing that, but I want to learn how to sing. Guys, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. It makes me so sweaty palmish. It is not even funny. I can get up there and play guitar with my daughter singing because she's beautiful and singing and everybody's watching her. No big deal. So then she says to me these two things, and then I'm going to pass it back to you, Brock, to lead. She says to me, she says, he can use sweaty palms in mighty ways. Ask Moses. And I was like, very cool. And then I asked her to tell me 3 things she'd go back and tell herself in her walk with Christ early on if she could. And she said many things, but I'm going to say this one. Always in capital letters, stay humble. We are nothing, capital letters, without him. He holds our very next breath. Who do we think we are? So wise counsel and asking insight is always a good thing. And so back to you, Brock.
Your turn, Nate.
Well, since Brandon read something he wrote down, I shared this with him earlier as I was writing in my journal this morning, and I'm just speaking first person here. So I can have everything I ever wanted in the world if all I ever wanted was Jesus, because God makes himself readily available to his children. For me, all this brokenness and everything that I've been experiencing in the last week is fairly new. But again, just being very vulnerable. I set an appointment with a Christian counselor that I'm going to be meeting with in the coming weeks. And so there's going to be things probably that I'm going to learn about myself that I didn't know. Just like Brandon's learned about himself this past year that he didn't know. And so, so it's going to be a lot of it's going to be a lot of self-discovery, in my opinion, and really getting some answers to why do I think this way about certain things.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, we're making counseling cool for 2025.
I've got a thought on that, but I want to hear what you're leaning into.
What am I leaning into?
Yeah.
3 things.
Okay. Of course, you have a bullet list. Goodness gracious.
So, number 1, I've got this weird fear of public gyms. Like I don't belong. So right after this call, I'm going to a public gym with one of my friends to start that whole thing. Number 2 is saunas and cold plunges. I've never done them except for cold plunges. If you're ever around me and Garrett Gunderson, he'll always tell you about the story that I did a cold plunge for the first time with him. It was an awful experience.
I think I've seen the video.
Yeah, awful. And then 3rd would be, I'm having a lot of fun right now in business, but it's time to remove myself from majority of the meetings that I have with people so that I can be more impactful with more people. And so this year is all about how do I lean into and get uncomfortable with hiring people and trusting people to do things at the utmost level of respect and in intentionality and deliberateness that I would bring to a client. So that's what I'm walking through in uncomfortability right now.
Speaking of uncomfortable, I'm just going to throw this out there, and I haven't even talked to y'all about this. Let's have a Cashflow Legendz event in 2025.
Ooh. I see Brock's stone cold facing us there, which means that he's got to really do some thinking about that in the gym today. So Brock, go do some thinking on that in the gym today. I love it. That definitely makes me uncomfortable. Where are we going to have it?
Nashville.
I knew he was going to say that as soon as we asked.
I mean, I'm down for Nashville.
If the Lord sees fit, I'll commit to that as soon as Brock says yes.
He does. He sees fit.
Okay.
Not that I see fit to it yet, but
yeah.
He sees fit that it will be in Nashville.
Okay. Oh,
so maybe we'll shoot for Q3.
Man, you're making me real uncomfortable. Q3,
Q4. I could have said Q4, but I was like, no, let's squeeze it a little bit. Let's say Q3.
I must discuss with my board of advisors.
Okay.
On an unrecorded line, and I will be back.
Would you phone a friend, and then we'll discuss it the next time we get together? All right. So actionable steps, because let's make this practical for anybody listening where you're like, okay, that's all well and good. I think I do understand that there's something going on with the banking process, and I am my greatest asset that I need to invest in always and first and foremost, which is learning and growing. I would say, guys, add your one action step as encouragement for anybody. I'm going to start with this. Write down what your definition is of wealth and freedom. And once you get clear on that with yourself, your spouse, your business partner, whoever's connected to you, your family, or you by yourself, ask yourself, am I on a trajectory with clear moves to be made if the Lord sees fit to accomplish that? And if you are not, then ask why. And then if the answer is I'm not, and you ask why, then start looking into how, and it'll become very clear. So that's my action step for beginning of 2025. What do y'all got?
If somebody's listening and they are lacking confidence, I would challenge you to ask yourself, why am I not confident in my life, my money, my family, my fitness? Again, the powerful question of why comes up. But maybe, hey, we speak with confidence about what we know and what we teach and everything like that. Why are these guys so confident talking about money? What would it take for me to gain that confidence?
Nate, can you first define confidence and where it comes from?
Confidence is, one, it's knowledge, and it's also experience. It's a combination of the two. It's the understanding of things, and then also the experience behind that, being able to look back and see how those things have been applied. So I would say that's where the confidence comes from.
Brock, were you going somewhere with that? Nope. All right. What would you add as your action step to start 2025?
Action step to start 2025 would be to get your cash flow structure in order. Know what's coming in to the exact dollar. Know what's coming out so that you know what's left over, and you have a actual game plan and goal for knowing where you ought to be on a basic level by the end of the year.
That's good. We appreciate everybody joining and listening. We do not take lightly that you share 1 minute of your time, 2 minutes of your time, all of your time with us through these episodes. We greatly appreciate when you share it if you think we bring value to anything that we discuss. And a great reminder that the banking process is going to happen forever. The real question is will we be a product of that process, or will we use the process to our advantage? So remember, you don't have to do it on your own. Dan Sullivan wrote a great 48-page PDF, says ask who, not how. We are honored to have the potential to be your who, and we'll just get it out of the way right now. We don't charge you anything up front other than your willingness to lean into getting uncomfortable about thinking or rethinking your thinking. That's it, which is pretty cool. And I'm proud of that. So, guys, appreciate y'all's vulnerability. Appreciate you letting me put you on the spot. I'm going to leave with this because the Lord just put it on my heart. Men specifically, the Lord has reminded me over and over again that we have been conditioned to believe that we are successful if we create success by ourselves. And we're a failure if we're not successful doing it on our own. That is a lie, straight from the pits of hell, if I'm going to be very blunt. Men are supposed to help other men grow and be successful. So find your group of guys, find your good buddy, find your accountability partner, and start leaning into that uncomfortableness if that's where you're at right now. We hope y'all have a blessed day. Can't wait to talk to you on the next one. Thanks for joining.